Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna from your heart. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha, Radhanata Radha, Radhanata Radhe, Radha Radhanata Radha, Radhanata Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki, their Lordship Shri Radha Radhanath ki, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. So this morning, we are reading from the Nectar of Instruction, text 2, item 5. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nectar of Instruction, Srila Rupa Goswami. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Text 2, Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo nimya agraha jnana sangaschaloyam cha sadbhir bhakti vinasyati. Translation. One's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities. 1. Eating more than necessary. 2. Collecting more funds than required. 1. Eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required. 2. Over-endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain. 3. Talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. 4. Practicing the spiritual roles and regulations for only the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically. 5. Associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And 6. Being greedy for mundane achievements. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. I will read just those parts that are relevant to item number 5 that we are looking at this morning. The purport begins by Srila Prabhupada setting the tone for this verse. Human life is meant for plain living and high thinking. Since all conditioned living beings are under the control of the Lord's third energy, this material world is designed so that one is obliged to work. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has 3 plenary primary energies or potencies. So now we're looking more specifically at item number 5, which talks to us about not associating with worldly minded people. Srila Prabhupada goes on to explain, I quote, one should avoid association with Mayavadis, who simply blaspheme Vaishnava devotees. Bhukti kamis who are interested in material happiness. Mukti kamis who desire liberation by merging in the existence of the formless absolute Brahman. And Siddhi kamis who desire the perfection of mystic yoga practice are classified as Acchaharis. To associate with such persons is not at all desirable. Desires to expand the mind by perfecting mystic yoga, merging in the existence of Brahman, or attaining whimsical material propensities are all included within the category of greed. All attempts to acquire such material benefits or so-called spiritual advancement are impediments of the path of Krishna consciousness. Modern warfare waged between capitalists and communists is due to their avoiding the advice of Srila Rupa Goswami regarding Acchahara. Modern capitalists accumulate more wealth than necessary, and the communists, envious of their prosperity, want to normalize all wealth and property. Unfortunately, the communists do not know how to solve the problem of wealth distribution. Consequently, when the wealth of the communists falls in the hands of the capitalists falls in the hands of the communists, no solution results. Opposed to these philosophies in Krishna conscious ideology states that all wealth belongs to Krishna. Thus, unless all wealth comes under the administration of Krishna, there can be no solution to the economic problems of mankind. Nothing can be solved with placing wealth in the hands of communists or capitalists. If a $100 bill is lying on the street, someone may pick it up and put it in his pocket. Such a man is not honest. Another man may see the money and decided to let it remain there, thinking that he should not touch another's property. Although the second man does not steal the money for his own purposes, he is unaware of its proper use. The third man, who sees the $100 bill, may pick it up, find the man who lost it, and deliver it to him. This man does not steal the money to spend for himself, nor does he neglect it or let it lie in the street. By taking it and delivering it to the man who has lost it, this man is both honest and wise. Om Jnana Timirandasya Ginanjana Salakaya Chakshurum Militam Jaina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manoblistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadamayam Dadanti Swam Padantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Patakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarvadhutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radha Vrindavaneshware Vrishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubheva cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Shri Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prashadine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine. Hare Krishna. Welcome to the Sunday morning class right here at the Sri Sri Radha Radhanath Temple. It's lovely to be in your association this morning. And before I begin, I'd like to pray for the mercy of those Vaishnavas who are present here so that I may speak some words that are pleasing to the heart and speak honestly and represent Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas. So this morning, our topic is on association. And Srila Prabhupada, just as we're saying right now, the association of devotees we find is so important in our lives. I think more importantly, before we get into the crux of the philosophy of the purport, for us to take a moment and appreciate and be grateful for sharing each other's space this morning. How did we feel about 2 years ago when COVID had hit us? And I read just something yesterday that when I was studying this text or this verse from the Nectar of Instruction, where it was on the 5th of March, 2 years ago, that our former Minister of Health, Dr. William Keys, at that time, had announced that COVID had come to South Africa. And it was just about 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks subsequent to that announcement on the 5th of March, 2020, that we went into a level 5 lockdown. And I clearly remember at that time, I think it was just before the entire South Africa, it was announced that, the family meeting came into play. And we had met here in the college room as temple management and the operations team, and we decided, what shall we do? So we were talking about various scenarios, and this was very new to us in South Africa. Of course, the world had seen it already. It was developing, but to us it was so new. And I think as a temple, as a Radha Radhanath Temple Management Board and Operations, we decided that we needed to close the temple. It was a very, very hard decision to be made. But we sat and we spoke about the different scenarios, and I think even before the level 5 lockdown had been officially announced in South Africa, we took the decision. Raghunath Prabhu, you remember, we took the decision to say these are the measures that we needed to keep. Why? One was to actually protect the devotees, because this was a rapid spread. We didn't know what was really happening. And the second and more important reason, I stand to be corrected there to say it's more important, but we did not want to affect the worship of their Lordship, Sri Sri Radha Radhanath. We wanted the worship to continue so that all our devotees would be able to serve their Lordships uninterrupted, as we have for over 3 decades. So today, this morning, when we are able to sit here again in the temple room and enjoy each other's association, how wonderful do we feel? Would you agree? Right? How wonderful do we feel when we are able to drive here and we see that open temple doors and their Lordship Sri Sri Radha Radhanath and Srila Prabhupada welcoming us again. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Instruction bases one of the pillars of having proper, good sadhu sangha, and understanding why devotee association is so very important for us to actually advance spiritually. So just to frame, or I know that we've been reading from the Nectar of Instructions for quite a few weeks now, but just to go back to the introduction of the Nectar of Instruction, and Srila Prabhupada explains to us that the Krishna consciousness movement is conducted under the supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas, or Bengali Vaishnavas, are mostly followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of whom the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan are direct disciples. And Srila Prabhupada, before he signs off the introduction, he makes mention that advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. A follower of Krishna consciousness movement should become a perfect Goswami. Vaishnavas are generally known as Goswamis. In Vrindavan, this is the title by which the director of each temple is known. One who wants to become a pure devotee of Krishna must become a Goswami. Go means the senses and Swami means the master. Unless one controls his senses and mind, one cannot become a Goswami. To achieve the highest success in life, by becoming a Goswami and then a pure devotee of the Lord, one must follow the instructions known as the Upadeshritam, which has been given by Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami has given many other books, such as the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, but the Upadeshritam constitutes the first instructions for the neophyte devotees. One should follow these instructions very strictly, then it would be easier to make one's life successful. Hare Krishna. And that was signed off on the 20th of September 1975 by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who we give all gratitude to for how we've changed, how he has changed our lives. So the Nectar of Instruction, as we are studying or we are reading these different verses, gives us 2 different views, right? 2 different views. One is what we should do, the do's, to go ahead with spiritual advancement. And the second part is the don'ts. So if we have to liken this to going to a doctor, so we have an ailment, and our ailment is actually being here in the material world, suffering as conditioned souls. So we have an ailment, and when we go to the doctor looks at us and he checks out our symptoms, right? We have a consult. And then what he says, okay, so dear patient, this is what you have to do. But when you do this, there's also things you should not do in order to heal. Make sense? Right? So there's things that we have to do, as is explained here in the Nectar of Instruction. There's items that are listed by Srila Rupa Goswami. And Srila Prabhupada has lucidly, clearly, plainly translated and offered us a purport to understand these instructions. What do we do and what don't we do in order to cure us from this disease, like going to the doctor, in order to heal from this material world, in order for us to make spiritual advancements? So this is what happens. There's the rule and there's the prohibition. The vidhi means what we do, and the nishid means what we don't do. So Srila Rupa Goswami at the beginning of Nectar of Instruction, because remember we are only on text 2, he gives us all the don'ts first. So he says don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. It's going to impede your spiritual growth. And as we go on studying the Nectar of Instruction, Srila Rupa Goswami now shares with us what we should do. So first comes the nishid, the don't, and then comes the vidhi. So today I'm speaking about one of the very, very important aspects here, and that is not to, remember it's the don't, so not to associate with worldly minded people. And Srila Prabhupada clearly explains to us that why we should not. Because there's three types that are explained here in the purport of worldly people, right? There's three types. There's the bhukti, there's the mukti, and there's the siddhi. And all of them, the first one is more interested in sense gratification, in looking at the mind, looking at the senses, right? Understanding that we have three innate qualities, and all these qualities should be devoted to the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The body, the mind, and the speech, or our words. These three qualities should be offered, the body, the mind, and our words, to Krishna in devotional service, because this is the way we are able to make spiritual advancement. So just as the Tridandi sannyasi, and we know who the Tridandi sannyasis are, the swamis who are sannyasis. They hold the Tridanda, the Tridandi, and that is made up of three very important parts: the body, the mind, the speech. They've devoted all of that in their sannyas ashram to service, devotional service to Guru and Gauranga. So those three aspects we have to work towards being the master of those aspects. And when we become the master of that aspect, we actually become the servant of Krishna. Because we are able to master the control of our senses. We are being able to master the need for enjoying sense gratification. And we are able to master what words we speak, all in glorification of Krishna. And in that way, we become the Goswamis that Srila Prabhupada has described here in the introduction of the Nectar of Instruction. Goswami being to let go of all the needs of sense gratification. So when we are strongly connected to Krishna within our own heart, then what happens? Automatically, we find that peace. Automatically, we find that we don't want to use our body for mundane activity. We don't want to use our words to speak prajalpa. And one of the items of this text speaks to us about prajalpa. Prajalpa means the unnecessary words, the gossip, taking time out to talk about whatever we're watching on television, right? Unnecessary drama that goes on in our mind. And what also happens, then the mind is fixed. The mind is fixed in devotional service. And oftentimes, we have in the deity department, and when I'm serving in the deity department, there's nice quotes by Srila Prabhupada, thanks to Anandamai Prabhu for that. There's nice quotes on the kitchen walls to remind us what Srila Prabhupada says. Srila Prabhupada says about devotional service that it should not be a mechanical. It shouldn't be just a mechanical process, because Krishna doesn't want your mechanical offering. Krishna wants simplicity, but he wants it from the heart. So whatever offering we make, no matter how elaborate it may be, no matter how many preps we decide to make for Krishna and place it on his plate, but if it's not done with the correct mood, then what does that mean? Does Krishna accept that as devotional service? And whenever I'm in the deity kitchen and I see these reminders all around me, immediately it shifts my state of mind. Immediately it shifts my consciousness. Immediately Srila Prabhupada gives me a reminder to say, listen, yes, you could be making a fancy meal for Krishna, but Krishna is only going to really accept it when it comes with a loving devotional service. It comes with that heart. So these are the qualities that we have to remain aware of. So one of the things that brings us down in terms of our consciousness is when we associate with such Mayavadis. When we associate with the bhakti kami, the mukti kami, and the siddhi kami. So one who's more interested in sense gratification, who's enjoying. The next one who believes that I am Krishna, I am God within me, I'm an impersonalist. And the third one who says, I will perform mystic yoga because I can manifest certain wonderful material items, then I'm one with God, I am God. So by associating with these worldly people, what happens? We tend to forget about our devotion. We tend to forget about Krishna. So naturally, and I think a big one is with sadhu sangha. Sadhu Sangha, it talks to us about understanding the importance of devotee association, and not any devotee association, good devotee association. Oftentimes, even in normal world of work, right? And Srila Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Instruction explains that as grihasthas, as people who are living outside of the temple, one of the main things that we do in life is actually go to work, because that is our responsibility to our family. But how we spend our time and who we associate with actually either makes or breaks our day. Am I correct? We could come home from work, from being in the office for so many hours, and we spend the bulk of our day wherever our work is. We could come home feeling drained because we had that negative association. We could come home feeling like, I've got such a heavy head today, or I'm feeling so down about something. So we always should strive to associate with those who can give us that good energy, who we can learn something from. Like one of the rules now for initiation, to take initiation, is to actually follow the disciple course or take the disciple course within ISKCON. But not only that, another prerequisite is actually to have a mentor within ISKCON. And that mentor is so important. That devotee association is so important, because we can turn to that person to say, you know what, today I am having a problem with my japa. Today my mind is not fixed. I've had a bad day in the material world. I've had a bad day at work. I'm not feeling, my heart is not aligned to my service. Or I'm having some material problem. There's something wrong at home, and so on. So having that mentor, having that good devotee association who you can reach out to, and somebody who will assist you, is so important. And never a time, I think, in whichever part of our devotional life we may be, at whichever stage, it's super important to have at least that one person you can reach out to confidentially. That one person that you can turn to who will not judge you, right? Who will not judge you, who will not gossip or spread the word that you are having some problem, but who would rather that higher association that you can turn to that person who you know will actually give you proper advice, sound advice in terms of Krishna consciousness. So when we are looking at Jnana Sangha, right, and that's what our purport, Srila Prabhupada also explains to us here in terms of Jnana Sangha, and I will read that to you in a minute. Jnana Sangha, I'm quoting Srila Prabhupada from the purport, refers to associating with persons not interested in Krishna consciousness. Page 21, Raghunath Prabhu. Right? With persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. One should strictly avoid such association. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has therefore advised us to live only in the association of Krishna conscious devotees, Bhakta Sanevas. One should always engage in the service of the Lord, in the association of the Lord's devotees. Association with those engaged in a similar line of business is very conducive to advancement in that business. Consequently, materialistic persons form various associations and clubs to enhance their endeavors. For example, in the business world, we find such institutions as the Stock Exchange and Chamber of Commerce. Similarly, we have established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness to give people an opportunity to associate with those who have forgotten Krishna. The spiritual association offered by the ISKCON movement is increasing day by day. Many people from different parts of the world are joining this society to awaken their dormant Krishna consciousness. So, Srila Prabhupada, one of the main goals in establishing these temples was to give us the opportunity to have association. Right? And that association comes in the form of chanting, of kirtan, of honoring prasadam together. Now, as we know, association is two ways. We give and we receive. That's association. You can't associate by yourself. So when you are in associating, you giving that knowledge, you giving that wisdom, you giving your energy. And when we talk about energy, we talk about universal vibration. So we are looking at understanding what are we giving to somebody. So somebody comes to talk to me and they want my association, or I'm going to use a simple term, a friendship. So I'm talking to this person, I'm giving my time, I'm giving my words, I'm giving my thought, my mind space to this person, right? And what am I receiving? I'm also receiving their thought, their mind, their words, their energy. So if we are associating with the mundane, with the Mayavadis, what's going to happen? It's going to cloud our mind space. And remember that we are not in the greatest advanced stage. We are still taking those baby steps. We are still taking those steps to actually achieve the advanced stage. As Srila Prabhupada says, the Tridandi sannyasi who has mastered the body, the mind and the words. We are still a sadhaka. We are taking those small baby steps. So the more we give our energy, our time, our mind, our words, our thoughts, our physical association with those who are not conducive to our spiritual development and our spiritual growth, what's happening? They are bringing us down. Because, as I said, association is a two-way street. So the more we associate with like-minded people, Vaishnavas, the more of their energy, their words of wisdom, their philosophy, we start talking about Krishna. And what happens when our mind, our words are more devoted to Krishna, automatically it enhances our devotional service. Then our devotional service becomes easy. It becomes actually something that we want to do. Mundane, so what, one of the famous lines that we hear so often nowadays is that what we focus on grows, right? So whatever we focus on grows. So if we focus on all the negativity that's happening in the world, if we continuously focus on all the bad things in our life, this is not working out, that is not working out. Somebody told us something, I really dislike my job, I wish for something more, I'm making no progress in my spiritual life, or whatever it may be, and everything negative is here. What happens? Right? That's going to grow. So the more we associate with those who are in that materialistic space, as Srila Prabhupada said, the bhukti, the mukti, the siddhi, the more that we associate with those type of people, the more our consciousness is going to shift. Another buzzword that we look at recently is of transformation. So do we want to transform our consciousness to the higher level? That's when we associate with devotees who are interested in Krishna consciousness, because we have Sangha, we have Katha like this. Or do we associate with those people who are materialistically inclined? So our conversations are completely materialistic. And then what happens when you talk to somebody and you go home and you take a moment, and this very often happens to me. I always take moments to reflect, especially at the end of my day when there's quiet time. And after the busyness of my day, and I take a moment to reflect, what happened through my day? Who did I speak to? What conversation did I have? What text did I receive? Or what email did I have to reply to? And so on. And then I think, hey, but how did I feel when I received that call? Or how did I feel when I spoke to that person? What energy did it bring to me? Have you ever experienced that? Where you get off the phone with somebody and you feel, oh, that was a heavy conversation. Did I need that in my day? Right? But that's something that we understand, to say what energy, what consciousness. And sometimes, another word that we use nowadays, that we vibe. We have the energy, the good energy that we pick up from somebody, and we want to have the association more. And we say, oh, I'd love sharing my time with you. when can we meet again? When can we talk again? And that's what Srila Prabhupada's encouraging in terms of setting up these beautiful temples. Setting up these beautiful temples for us to have the space to enjoy this type of association. So unfortunately, in materialistic life, we are exposed to all of this. We are exposed. We are living in the material world. It's very difficult to be a yogi in the Himalayas, right? In the year 2022, it's not so easy. We have family responsibility, we have work responsibility, we have responsibility to temple, to Srila Prabhupada, to our gurus, to our acharyas, to go out there and preach. We have these responsibilities, but we have a choice also. That throughout the day, in whatever association that we choose to accept, we make the right choice. So if we know this is not going to help me in my spiritual growth and development, you make that choice. His Holiness Radhanath Swami, who I am so fond of in terms of listening to his class and following him, you know, I was reading and Maharaj speaks a lot about association. A lot about association, because that's so powerful. We are sitting right here in this room, in this temple room together, and we are associating even if we're doing so silently, because we are sharing physical space. Right? So Maharaj was explaining in his book, The Journey Home, that when he was going on all his travels and he was exploring the mystic India and going to Rishikesh and Haridwar and going to the Ganga, Mother Ganga and so on, and he was actually just exploring, and then he went to Prayag for the Mahakumbha Mela. Right, which I've, thanks to my dad, that I had the opportunity to also experience the Mahakumbha Mela, the Sangam, where the Ganga, the Yamuna, and the Saraswati rivers meet as a confluence. So His Holiness Radhanath Swami had gone there to Prayag at that year. And Maharaj beautifully explains that he says he was, you know, a youngster who was excited to experience the thousands, millions of people in India. And he went to the Ganges River and he was so happy to be a part of everything. He had his passport in a little cloth bag and he decided to leave it on the banks of the Ganges, and he says, I am going to swim in the Ganga today. I'm going to be a part of this experience. And having been a part of the experience myself, I can tell you it's quite an experience. Right? It's quite an experience where you are literally, and I know some of you in the temple room here have experienced that many times. So that experience actually can be quite scary, because there's thousands of people, millions, who want to take bath in the holy river at that particular time of the confluence. It gets hectic. So Maharaj left his bag and he decided to go into the Ganges. And he went into the Ganges, and now Maharaj says, hey, I'm so excited to be here in Prayag and I'm going to swim. So he swam. And he swam and he swam. He wants to enjoy, he wants to take in this mood of what's happening. And eventually he goes to the other side. And Maharaj goes to the other side of wherever the Mother Ganga has taken him. And he's alone there now. And he tries to get out of the river. And what happens? He's been pulled in by quicksand. And he's alone. He's not from India. Right? So he's a different body. He's not from there. He's alone on the other side. The Sangam, everything's happening far away now because he decided to swim and have a good time experiencing this. And he goes there and he's been pulled by the quicksand all by himself. And he explains so nicely that as he's trying to get onto a tree that he sees and he's holding onto it, but the sand is just pulling him down, pulling him down, pulling him down. And eventually that tree uproots. So he's got nowhere to go, so he decides, what do I do? Do I die in the sand or do I die in Mother Ganga? So what does Maharaj choose? I'd rather die in Mother Ganga, right? So he decides to swim again, so he's going to swim back. And when he swims back and when he decides to say, I'm going to go back the way I came, the current was so strong. And he explains that every time that he swam a mile, he was pushed back. And he swam and he was pushed back, but now he had no energy. He was giving up. His hands couldn't move. And then there, far away, he saw a boatman. And the boatman was still far away from him. And he said, yes, now I've seen somebody, I'm going to get help. So he's waving at this boatman, and the boatman finally saw him. Boatman finally saw him, and what did the boatman do? And he just did this. And he continued. And Maharaj says, what? He thought at that moment, this man just dismissed me? This boatman didn't come to help me? And he just flagged me away. He just gave me that direction. And that was it. He says, well now, Mother Ganga, I'm dead in your river. And underwater he went. And then he thought, at that point, the mind went to his experience in Rishikesh, at the river Ganges in Rishikesh, and he remembered the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And Maharaj remembered that mantra that he had heard in Rishikesh some time ago. And then Krishna gave him the intelligence. And he said, why did the boatman do this? The boatman was signaling him to say, go this way. This is where the current is flowing smoothly. So Maharaj was going against the current. Radhanath Swami, His Holiness Radhanath Swami, was swimming against the current. And the boatman couldn't get to him. So all he did, he gave him a signal to say, swim with the current towards, go in a direction that's going to help you go to your destination. Don't go against it. And at that point, Maharaj found his energy again. And he decided to swim with the current rather against the current. And he finally reached the bank where he initially started, where the Sangam was. And then now the next calamity of mind. Where is my passport? Where is that cloth bag that I left after hours that I'm gone? But the bag was there waiting for Maharaj. And when Maharaj sat after that experience, he sat on the sand. And he so beautifully explains that the same sand allowed me this experience of the Mahakumbha Mela. The same sand, as I swam across the river Ganges, pulled me in the quicksand. The same sand is now giving me reprieve in the cool afternoon as I'm sitting and enjoying this experience. And Maharaj associates that experience with association. To say people, like the sand, have different energies. The sand is there. Right? But the experiences that he's had within that day had 3 or 4 different experiences with the same sand. So who we choose to associate with will give us the experience, either the negative or the positive. So what do we choose in our life? What do we choose in our day? So just like the sand, as with people and association, we're going to find them differently. That's material living. That's material life. That's what we're here for. We're here to get rid of the anarthas. We're here to devote our time to sadhu sangha. We are here to devote our time to japa. We are here to devote our time to devotional service done with the correct spirit. So remember that pastime of Maharaj, that we will be meeting many people in our lives. Just like the sand, the same sand, but gives us different experiences. But by remembering Krishna, by remembering who we are and where we want to go, we're changing our focus. And what did I say earlier? What we focus on grows. So the moment that we are feeling we are pulled down by this energy of a particular person, we desire, we want to uplift our energy. So what do? We associate with Vaishnavas. And that itself are like-minded people. Now, also here, in the Nectar of Instruction, when we look at, Srila Prabhupada reminds us that this temple, he actually concludes, page 26, Raghunath Prabhu, The Krishna consciousness movement offers a spiritual community. Very important, that word community, because we are not in isolation. We are not in isolation. We are innately dependent on each other. So this Krishna consciousness movement offers a spiritual community that can bring about a peaceful condition in the world. Every intelligent man should purify his consciousness and rid himself of the above-mentioned 6 hindrances to devotional service by taking wholehearted shelter of this Krishna consciousness movement. And we have to actually give all gratitude to Srila Prabhupada, all thanks to Srila Prabhupada for establishing these Krishna consciousness movement. That's what it's about. We should take advantage of the opportunities that we have. And many a times I've been asked, with media especially, I've been asked, they say, the Sri Sri Radha Radhanath Temple of Understanding, what does that mean? We've never heard that it's a temple of understanding. We know certain mandir, or we know a certain temple. What does it mean? Please explain to us. What does it mean? You have such a beautiful concept that we've never heard before. The Hare Krishna Temple of Understanding in Chatsworth, Durban? Tell us about it. And it's such an interesting conversation. And sometimes when we speak to journalists and editors and we have to share what goes on within our temple, they think, wow. And I've had this so many times. Wow. Is this what you do? I thought it was that there's beautiful statues that are there that we can come and visit at. It's a very nice restaurant, vegetarian restaurant at your temple. And when we explain what we do and why we are the temple of understanding, why we are the temple of understanding, right? That's an interesting point, because our books and our philosophy, we have the do's and don'ts of life, right? We have the formulas, the vidhi and the nishid, as explained in Nectar of Instruction by Srila Rupa Goswami, the do's and don'ts to perfect the material living. So we should, of course, be the temple of understanding, because we understand the cycle of birth and death. We understand how the mind works, and we are also given the formula to take care of our senses. We are also given the perfect formula. It's only a matter of our choice what we choose to. In schools nowadays, we look at bullying, we look at peer pressure, we look what we talk about. We talk about association, how that negative association clouds our mind, how that negative association makes us bad people. The negative association and relationships and experiences pull us down. So what we strive to? We strive body, mind, words, association with people who can fill our soul. And how do we fill our soul? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so I'd like to open for any comments, questions, thoughts. Yes, Raghunath Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you for your nice class, as always. I just thought, in your course of your services for the movement, you come in contact with many politicians and different worldly-minded people. What effect it has had on you, or do you feel any effects after dealing with them or associating with them? What is your feeling?
Thank you for that question, Raghunath Prabhu. Yeah, and it's interesting because over the course of the years, we've seen how people have changed. The conversations that we've had. So, over the years, we've seen how politics have become so, I could say, use a word like bitter. They want you on their side, the alliances that are formed over time. And here with ISKCON, we have to be so neutral because we want to give the best to society. We do not want to be used in the process. right? So exactly what I've said earlier, and I always keep this in my mind, always keep this, especially when, like Rath Yatra festivals and so on. The beginning of my day, I ask myself, I'm going to be meeting X, Y, and Z, right? Am I giving association or am I receiving the association? So I frame my mind. And that I found that being very important. And I think for us who are in the world of work also, it's so important for us to frame our mind. So we say, today I am meeting Mr. X or politician Y or deputy mayor or premier or whatever. I'm going to give my association. I'm going to give Vaishnav association as neophyte as I am. But let me see what I can give so I can leave that impression of Srila Prabhupada. I can leave a good impression on ISKCON. So what do? Yes, I'm associating, but I'd like for you to learn more about ISKCON. I'd like to invite you to our temple. So in that way, I am actually now filtering out. I'm not going to be taking your association. I'm going to be rather giving more than I receive. If that makes sense to you at all. Raghunath Prabhu?
Yeah, I just thought, you were speaking of reflections, you take stock of all your activities of the day. What happened if you had a bad, some bad association? How you deal with it?
And bad association is there often. Actually my daughter. And it comes from a young age, at school especially, I'm noticing. And she phones me every day. I look at my phone when I'm busy. And after 2, between 10 past 2 and quarter past 2, she must phone me after her school day. And immediately when she gets on the phone and she says, Mom, you know what happened today? Oh, you know what happened today? And then, I've also been trying to explain to the younger children that it's important for us to understand we leave it where it is. And we don't do it again. We learn from our association. So you make a mistake, you make it once, you make it again, something's wrong. You could make it twice. But if you know that is negative energy, if you know, hey, then I'd rather not have that conversation with certain person. It's not going down well. So then you pull away, and you actually, when I'm ready, when I feel stronger, then I will have that conversation. So you know your boundaries, basically. Right? And when I reflect, I actually reflect in that way. And now you know to say mundane consciousness, it affects your consciousness. Sometimes things really affect your consciousness, right? Because we are living in the material world. So you say, this is not feeding me positively. I'm not going to have that association. I'm going to do things that are going to be fulfilling to me and my devotional service and my sadhana and my Krishna consciousness. So that's how I look at it. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Anybody else? Comments or thoughts or... the Nectar of Instruction is also very practical because it speaks to us about real life situations. So the more we focus on the good in our lives, the more we offer gratitude. Is there another? Yes. Jai Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for that very wonderful presentation. You made a point about the temple of understanding.
Yes.
And I like the way you presented that. Well, Srila Prabhupada, he wrote so many books, he compiled so many books for us to get an understanding of the culture of Krishna consciousness and not just be sentimentalist or just ringing bells. We don't want to be ringing bells all day. And, but philosophy, therefore, people can come from all walks of life and get the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and encouraged. Even the pujari can preach.
Yeah.
Even the cook, somebody is sweeping the floor, has some degree of understanding of Krishna consciousness. That's...
Thanks, Prabhu.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Absolutely. And I think that is where Krishna consciousness, and Srila Prabhupada makes it so clear in the purport, that this is a movement, we are a community. And when we showcase the same, as Raghunath Prabhu said, when we showcase the same in our festivals, our Durban Festival of Chariots, we are seen as a community. We are actually not seen as individuals. And that is what Srila Prabhupada wanted. Because in that way, as Jai Sachinandan Prabhu just mentioned, that we're not just a temple that has 4 walls and you walk in and you look at the statues, right, as often people say. But these deities have the potency to actually change our vision, change our hearts, and how we approach them is what's important. And that is why we are the temple of understanding, because we are very different in so many ways. We are here to serve the community, and coming back to that, we're giving our association. But in order for us as Vaishnavas, as aspiring Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, what we have to do is we have to continue depending on each other to grow. As much as we want to grow Krishna consciousness, following the footstep of our acharyas, but we also have to grow individually. So we have to be dependent on each other for that association. So we filter out all that negative association that's there within the world, and we begin to depend on each other for our own spiritual growth and advancement. As simple as that. In a nutshell. As simple as that. So yes, we go on with our daily lives, but we know where to set our boundaries, what to focus on, how to filter out. Look at the sand. Remember the sand with His Holiness Radhanath Swami. We're going to experience the same sand in different experiences, but it's how we choose to see it and what association we choose to have. So if there's no other comments or questions, Arjunacharya Prabhu? Thank you so much. Thank you for your association this morning. And please forgive me for any offenses. Hare Krishna.